Sorry about that little delay. You guys know I got a new setup. I got 3 screens here, and apparently when you put the main display on a side screen, I don't have all the options to move screens in and out. Just learning something new every day. Backstage, we got Michelle Gibson, and we've got Chad, and Chad's gonna have to forgive me because I forgot his last name. Let's see. Let's get this intro out of the way because I got too many screens filled up. You guys know I did a matrix breakdown about 9 months ago, 10 months ago. Had a lot of problems with YouTube about it, so I removed it to Archaix. Michelle and Chad must about to break the internet because I have never had these issues all at one time. How interesting. I, I was fully exited out of the StreamYard app and then brought right back in. Maybe it's a CIA hack. I got some bad news, guys. Funky Prepper. You guys know I've had him on my channel 3 times. I've been on his channel a couple times. He's got a couple features on Archaix TV. Funky Prepper got in some trouble in the UK for reporting on the migrants and stuff. UK put him under house arrest. They confiscated all of his electronics. He was forbidden to engage on social media. I do not know what happened. I've got emails this morning that Funky Prepper has been taken into custody. So you guys know it's going down in the UK. Be careful what you post if you're in the UK. I'll find out more and I'll let you know. I'll find out more. I'll probably be giving updates on Twitter. For those of you who don't know, I've been on Twitter this morning, dropping some pretty heavy stuff. We got some direct quotes from Liber Chaos, Peter Carroll, that you need to understand this magical structure that we call reality and how it reciprocates. Also, some pretty compelling stuff from the biblical material and how it's been manipulated. So, without further ado, you already know we got several flavors. I'm drinking Phoenix Blend right now. I wish I could share it with you, but it's the best part of waking up. Archaix in your cup. You guys know it. That's that old Southern Baptist forced to sing in an all-girls choir my whole childhood. Now you know why I ran away at 15 years old. So I got some special guests today. Supposed to be on a long time ago, and then scheduling problems, and then guys know my life is chaotic, and you know what? They're here now. How you doing, Michelle? Chad?
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you very much, Jason, for having us on.
Yeah, it's a long time coming. Long time coming. You should have been on a long time ago. That's my fault.
It's all good. I think everything happens at the right time anyway.
Yeah, I subscribe to that idea as well. 100%. We'll have over 1,000 people in the chat real quick, and we should wait 10, 15, 30 more seconds, and that'll happen. And would you guys like to introduce yourselves and the work you do? Michelle, I've been on your channel this morning. I did not know until recently that you had so many interesting theories about trees and these ancient gigantic trees. And I also have some ideas, and I even have an idea that probably I'll share with you guys today that I have never even put on YouTube. But it has to do with the reason trees don't grow to those sizes anymore. I know my own community thinks I'm talking about vapor canopy, and I'm not.
And I actually have Chad to thank for putting trees on my radar. And he reached out to me for the first time 3 years ago this month. And in the last video clip that we're showing today, we'll be going through that particular information. But Chad and I have a special connection. We can't explain it except that we can call it a synchronistic collaborative partnership. He's got pieces to my puzzle and I've got pieces to his puzzle, and we put our pieces together. The whole is greater than the parts.
Okay. Okay.
And I think Chad has watched every movie ever made and has photographic recall of every movie ever made.
Yeah.
And we both started making videos, had never done it before. I started 6.5 years ago. Chad started 3 years ago, self-taught. And I, just basically do a video slideshow from my blog post. All of my research originates in my blog, and I've been blogging 6.5 years. So I started in June of 2018.
Okay. So if I remember correctly, you had put the link to your socials in the About Me section on this video, didn't you?
I don't know if I did or not.
I remember two links being in there. I don't remember what they were, because it's a rather lengthy section in the description box of this video right now about you, and I remember 2 links being in there, and also quite a good material about Chad in the description box as well.
Yeah. We had put a link to a trailer that Chad had compiled, just like a minute trailer. But in terms of coming together on this, our work is connected somehow, and it's not planned. It's more like setting an intention, but everything over the time that we have had occasion to do some work together, it's building. It's what we've talked about before together. And then there's another gentleman we work with, Adam, from the Alchemy Spectrum channel, who has synchronistic connections with what we're doing also. It's just like this information just wants to come out.
Yeah, it's in the field. When things are in the field, man, these synchronicities happen. I get the right guests on my channel right when a certain topic is in the field real strong. This has happened over and over. My community thinks I have this genius for bringing people in. I don't. I really have no clue what I'm doing. I'm just doing week to week. I'm living my life, and Big John's telling me who's coming on the channel and who's not. It just happens. You're right. I believe in that. I believe that information is revealed when information needs to be revealed, and no sooner.
And that's exactly what Chad and I have experienced in the work that we've done together. It wasn't planned. Right, Chad?
Never. And actually, you're a star. Pardon?
No, go ahead. You're
sorry, Jason. Michelle, you're a star, and the reason I started YouTube was because of you. You're an inspiration. So my part in this is quite little, but I'm just here kind of backing Michelle up as a sideman.
Oh no, your work is pretty incredible, and I hope the people watching this in the chat go to Deeper Conversations with Chad and check out his work, because it's beyond incredible. And it's like Chad not only thinks outside the box, he changes the box into something new, or he gets rid of the box completely. So he's a beyond the box thinker, and we're not the same. We don't have the same styles. Chad, it's like Chad takes the video work into art form, and I'm just showing slides and recording audio that go with the slides from my blog posts when I make my research videos. And I learned enough to do that. Chad, when he started making videos, and I don't even know how he does it, he just pulls in all this stuff.
Thank you, Michelle.
And I'm like,
you're gonna make him blush. Hold on, you're gonna make him blush. Stop.
Yeah.
So check it out. From what I understand, we're going to watch like 3 mini movies right here. Three different video clips that were all put together from scenes of the Matrix and stuff, and then we're going to have discussions between those, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready. I know my community's ready. We got almost 1,200 in the chat. We're ready for this.
Part 1 is sports circuits and circuit board earth, and that'll be about 15 minutes. This is work Chad and I have done together and separately throughout this. Part 2 is divide and harvest, which is about 10 and a half minutes long. And part 3 is giant trees in the matrix, which is about 12 minutes long. And I'll go ahead and get it started, and then we'll go from there. So I'm going to start at the end of part 1, or stop at the end of part 1.
As we're watching these video scenes, my moderators, would you please put their links? So when this video is being watched a month from now, 2 months from now, 10 years from now, those links will always be there where people can go find their content. I appreciate it. My moderators are really good at posting links to guests. Here you go, Michelle.
The human body generates more bioelectricity than a 120-volt battery and over 25,000 BTUs of body heat. Combined with a form of fusion, the machines had found all the energy they would ever need. What is the Matrix? Control. The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world, built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this. It's impossible. I didn't say it would be easy, Neo. I just said it would be the truth. Stop!
Recently, I've been looking into ley lines and the Earth's grid, and I came across some fantastic patterns inside of stadiums and fields, which I believe answer the questions to how they are harnessing the energy from stadiums. Firstly, to explore this, we need to explore Michelle Gibson's circuit board Earth theory and look at the circuit board Earth and what it may represent, to see what the stadiums and the pitches may be doing in terms of harnessing energy for the circuit itself. We were looking into meanings, definitions, and symbols to see if the stadiums and pitches represent or actually are batteries on the grid system itself, powering something larger that we are unaware of. The positive and negative forces of the home and away sides, cheering and creating tension. What are we really doing at football matches? And then finally, we'll look at the game in a philosophical manner and what hidden truths are hidden in football and other games. The stadiums and pitches not only representing the universe and life itself, but also being harnessed as a battery.
I think we are being told in our everyday language what the function was of specific infrastructure on the Earth, which was arranged as a circuit board for the once free energy generating electromagnetic grid system of the ancient advanced civilization all over the surface of the Earth, and which I believe existed up until recent times. We are still using much of the enduring and sophisticated infrastructure of this advanced civilization.
And they will face the green flag for 200 laps, 500 miles to start the 2024 season.
The sport of racing uses the word circuit in the following ways: the course over which races are won, the number of times the racers go around the track, an established itinerary of racing events involving public performance. And in bicycle racing, a circuit race is a mass start road cycle race that consists of several laps of a closed circuit, where the length of the lap is slightly longer each time. Electrical circuit definitions include a closed path in which electrons from a voltage or current source flow, and includes devices that give energy to the charged particles the current is comprised of, such as batteries and generators. Devices that use current, like lamps, electric motors, and computers. And the connecting wires or transmission lines. An electronic circuit is a complete course of conductors through which current can travel.
Looking at a battery, realizing and obviously knowing that the negatives at the bottom and the positives at the top, visualizing a ladder climbing between the positive and the negative at the bottom, which would represent the 9 realms, us being the middle realm, which would be the perfect balance between positive and negative duality. And then when I turn the battery, it gave me the realization that pitches and stadiums could be harnessing this type of technology. When I started to draw the lines from side to side, corner to corner, following basic geometry, it created a natural pattern of pyramids, which space between 9 lines within a pyramid, the 7 in the middle to me representing the spectrum of the rainbow, and also the 9 on each side, creating a positive and negative vortex, as you can see, highlighted by the blue and red. We also know magnets to work in this way with a positive and a negative spectrum, and obviously with the home and the away, teams and fans, players, and all of the crowd creating a vortex.
Game over. Armani Watts with the interception. The Texas Aggies are undefeated. On the way. No, return by Chris Davis. Davis goes left. Davis gets it. Davis gets it. Chris Davis. Touchdown.
The human body generates more bioelectricity than a 120-volt battery and over 25,000 BTUs of body heat. There are fields, endless fields. To keep us under control, in order to change a human being into this. No. I didn't say it would be easy. It would be the truth.
I'm suggesting to you that stadiums and pitches are being harnessed as some type of battery.
Wouldn't it stand to reason that those behind the reset when setting up the new world would take advantage of the super science of the different types of circuits in the Earth's grid system in order to harness their inherent power to enhance performance at sporting events, and in the process making lots of money at highly charged, prestigious gaming and betting venues? In regards to similar configurations found in different cities, in Cincinnati, Ohio, the city's professional sports stadiums are downtown next to the Ohio River. And interestingly, they are situated on the river exactly like they are in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Same seemed to be true in London and surrounding areas. Then looking into Olympic stadiums, the same pattern seemed to be formed. The 4 triangles, as you can see, the 7 or 9 rays forming through the middle, and then the positive and negative, each represented by 9 lines running around the pattern, equaling 18 in total. Looking at the words and definitions, all sports take place on a playing field or a sports field. The word field reminds me of energy field or electromagnetic field. Looking at a football field, basketball court, or any other sports field, we can see how it creates positive and negative energy, and itself could become a field. Bear in mind, the definition and the objective of the game is to score a goal or a hoop. Also, bearing in mind that the definition of a bar was a gate, my thought process started to move on to what type of energy is being used on a pitch. Once I started to search the term kinetic energy related to football, startling developments occurred. If you can put 2 and 2 together, you can surely see how this could already be taking place on football fields with the natural geometry and the pattern that I've found. If you were to imagine pulling those triangles up from the top in the middle of the center of the pitch, you would actually form a pyramid. When imagining the pyramid and then seeing the stadium around the pyramid as well, straight away Stargate came to mind. As we discovered with the definition of a bar, could the pitch, the stadium, and the spectators combined together all be acting as some form of gate? You know, just looking at the cover of Stargate, the circle surrounding the top, you can see as a particle accelerator of the stadium, which sits upon the pitch. Just squash the pyramid down from the top, and it would easily form the pitch and the 4 triangles that I've shown. For Shakespeare, the world was a stage. To natural philosophers of Newton's era, it was a mechanical clock. Physicists of the 19th century viewed reality more like a steam engine. Today, scientists regard nature as a computer. Through the works of people such as Mel Gibson, we start to look at the world as a circuit board. It's undeniable in terms of the imagery how much the world looks like a circuit board, how it operates in its systems. We are mainly looking at the power generating facilities within the circuit board. And through the last video, you could see the pattern and the grid that was found within stadiums, pitches, which is being used as an energy harvesting facility, which, just like in the films Monsters Inc., where when the children are scared and scream, their screams are harnessed and turned into energy, it's the exact same principle for the opposing teams cheering, roaring, screaming. That energy is captured through sound vibration and transferred into harnessed energy.
Oh, I'm feeling good today, Mikey. Yeah.
Oh, attaboy, another dog coming right up.
While letting out the last video, we had comments referring to Squatterman and the pattern very much matching mine on the field, and a whole range of other symbolic representations such as the Holy Grail, the Scarab Beetle, the Spider, the Last Supper, just to name a few. Also, theatres and churches seem to play a role in either power generating or influencing people through song, chants, plays.
End of part 1.
That's pretty interesting. Very interesting. Good narration.
Very much so.
It certainly gets my AIX vibe going, because that is one of the hallmarks of the Archaix research, is demonstrating through calendrics that the history of the world is a falsified version. It is nothing but programming, and that we can actually see the operations of artificial intelligence X in the unfolding of historical events. This is what hundreds of my videos are about. So to see you present these phenomena like these sports stadiums and stuff as part of like central energy processors or whatever, or generators, that's pretty compelling to me because of the history of the sports stadium. It almost, this is going to go a little deep. As I was watching that, I was imagining what those stadiums were used for in the past, before we ever had commercialized sports. Stadiums are ancient, and not only does sports take the place of hand-to-hand combat involving thousands and tens of thousands of adrenaline junkie screaming men on a battlefield that are expending a tremendous amount of energy and fear and adrenaline and even excitement and bloodlust as they're fighting each other, because these battles have happened in the tens of thousands, and they happen at the same places. We literally have whole maps you can look up where battlefields, different civilizations and different cultures and different time periods use the same areas for their battlefields. These are geographical areas that were like conjuncts between kingdoms and cultures, and has a lot to do with topography. But even beyond the scope of battle from which we got sports, we also had the Colosseums, where political dissidents, slaves, and blood sports were played in different cultures. Like the Roman Colosseum is a perfect example. That would have been a tremendous amount of energy, not just among the participants who were going to die, but also the viewership. And it worked that way in both hemispheres, because we know the ball courts of the ancient Americas were also a lot of attendance. People came from all over like the Aztec and Toltec empires to watch these events, and the losing team were sacrificed. So yeah, it's pretty compelling.
And that's the reason that we went in this direction. You know, we can talk about a lot of things, but to show you, and since those were clips taken from videos that we've already done that part of it, and just merged it together. But again, there's a lot of intuition involved in this. I know for myself that I came along the path of doing my own research and blogging and making videos in a specific way. And that was, well, first of all, it was like my whole life I was noticing things. But within the last 15 years or so, it was sacred geometry, ley lines, and the Moors. And I think there was a very advanced civilization in our past that created this energy grid that they've, within the last couple, I think where we're living now, looking for areas of overlap, within the last couple of 100 years at the most, have inverted everything and reverse engineered an energy grid into this matrix. And Chad and I have been looking at different aspects, but it's kind of brought us along this whole idea of how we've been harvested. And I know the Matrix movie contains a lot of different levels of things we could look into, but I chose to focus on the battery aspect of it because that's where our research is taking us, the energy harvesting, and how whoever the Earth's controllers are, and we have some ideas, but whoever they are, have just inverted everything and taken this creation shapes, geometric shapes, and superimpose their own.
Okay. Have you guys ever looked at aerial photographs of a lot of these ancient cities like Tenochtitlan, especially the Americas, that look just like computer motherboards? So you're already on top of that. You've already seen. Okay. Yeah.
It goes back ancient times, but also comes up through modern times.
Hey, Michelle, Chad's nodding. He's got the look on his face like, Jason, we've already done this a long time ago.
No, we're all on the same level, I think, with it, aren't we? You know, and this is far-reaching, this energy harvesting that we're talking about. We just put the example of the sports fields on, but you know, the general 9 to 5 system, us giving our own energy into the system to essentially give it back in terms of money, monetary value in order to survive for our basic needs. And that's just one element, but there's so many. It seems to be our emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual. It's a warfare on every level. You know, the Matrix represents so many aspects, and we could talk about anything, couldn't we? But essentially, that man-made machine, which springs back to darker principalities and evil, you know, that essentially is controlling man and keeping us from our true selves and the truth of life, lying to us through every avenue, deceit, control, manipulation. And it reaches in every subject. So this is why I think Michelle and myself and you cover so much, because it seems to be reaching into everything, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Literally
that's
everything.
pretty interesting. It is. I would be interested in your reaction to a very small book by Peter Carroll that I'm always telling my community about, called Liber Chaos. And it literally, the book is literally painting the picture that this is a magical structure that we have basically brainwashed ourselves to paint in quantum camouflage, and that we invent scientific phenomena in terms to describe things that are fundamentally at their core magic. And this structure allows a personality to do all kinds of things within a very fixed series of variables. And it's almost like an electric experience, but it's pretty good book. It's called Liber Chaos. I talk about it a lot.
And Chad and I both have gone deep into the role of black magic in what we're experiencing now, that we're on an occulted timeline. And we're facing, you know, obviously we don't even realize in the culture, the occulted culture that we've been given, that this is even happening. And oh my gosh, if you call them out on it, then you're crazy, you know, gaslighting.
Yeah.
When they're making us crazy. They're you know, they're terrorizing us and traumatizing us and feeding off of that negative energy that they've created, but it's all projected back on us. It's all our fault. You know, heavens to Betsy, if you ever question it, get shut down. You know,
Okay.
this came up earlier.
Haven't heard that one before. You done learned me something. Cult. The word cult is the root word in culture.
We do a lot on wordplay. It's all words are spells, essentially. We don't understand them, and they hold great power. And there's a lot to be revealed with words. So me and Michelle have explored a lot of the words, and there's so much to find with them. You know, they speak for themselves.
I can definitely believe that. It's language I have a whole bullet point presentation on all the reasons in the historical record why I believe this is a simulated experience, that we're in some type of computerized digital reality, and that none of this is really real. And one of those is the story of the Tower of Babel, because in the story, humans were building a construct, and the construct's purpose was to get them out of the experience. It was painted in religious terms as breaking into heaven. But the overseers looked down, and in the book of Genesis, it's very clear. In the Sibylline oracles, it's very clear. God is in the plural, and says, "Behold, the man has become as one of us, and there is nothing by virtue of imagination he will not be able to accomplish." So they come together and decide, you know what? They're going to do something to stop mankind from finishing the project. So they disrupted their communication in the story. I'm not saying the story is real. I'm saying that it's conveying something that is very real. It's a veiled threat. And in the story, the Tower of Babel situation was creating all these languages out of one. Because like in the Sibylline oracles, Book of Jasher, the Book of Jubilees, the Genesis text, all the ancient Mesoamerican traditions, there used to be one universal language. And then the gods became upset with a building project. Sometimes it's a tower, sometimes it's a temple, whatever. But the building project offended the gods because of what humans intended to do with it. So they created all the languages. Languages created division. Now we have all these different communication systems, and people weren't able to come together in a unified way to finish that project. So they just scattered once they found other people that communicated the same way they did. And this is the story. I don't know if it's real history, but in the programming, it's a pretty good threat. So it's a threat that reveals that there is a way from inside this experience for us to make a breach. But if we attempt it, we are to expect a reciprocal attack.
Yeah, there's so much going on right now, and it's like we're under a massive attack as humanity, and we don't know that we're the objects of it, because we don't know about our energy and our collective power. And then another interesting thing, since you bring up the Tower of Babel, is that all of the modern languages came into existence about the same time.
Yes, they did. I don't know what your research has shown, but to me, from what I have found, and most of my data comes from the pre-World War II censorship period, almost like all around here. I've turned the camera before and showed all my books, but 1800s was about the last period when in the historical truth was being published. After World War II, almost everything's falsified, politicized version of whatever. And it seems that all the scholars were on board that this explosion of languages happened sometime between the 35th century and the 31st century BC. And this explosion of languages was also the creation of almost all the ancient calendars. From the Zapotec, the Temple of the Cross, the Mayan long count calendar, the Egyptian Scorpion King calendar, all these, the Egyptian history, all these calendars just suddenly appeared right there in that same window of time. Also, agriculture, urbanization, the building of canals, civilization just exploded. Domestication of dogs, cats, all kinds of things just happened in that little 400-year period ex nihilo. Prior to that, it was all Neolithic. And it just exploded. I don't know what your research revealed, but this is what I have found across the board.
They've gotten into our language. They've given us a falsified historical narrative that they indoctrinate us in school. We have to, compulsory education, so we have to go learn it. And all they want is our energy. It doesn't matter to them what we believe, what we think, what we know. We are just a fuel source for them, literally and figuratively.
So the model that you're basically conveying right now is similar to what the architect told Neo in one of the other Matrix movies, when he had told him that we had done previous versions, but you revolted against the programming. It was too perfect. It was too good. You disbelieved it. So we had to create a world that you would believe, and that included pain, deception, all kinds of things like that.
That's what we're living in right now.
Yeah, I can buy that. I'll buy that for $1. Yeah.
Chad?
Round and round. Yeah, round and round. You know, I feel like I need to take this opportunity to talk about the oneness of all this. You know, because you know when Neo breaks down and all the code and he turns into it. You know, we don't go off subjective experience. You know, we try to look to science and all of this, but if we look to scriptures and so forth, it is subjective experience. A lot of the prophets and so forth, it was personal experience. And myself, I have experienced all is one. And, you know, and it's what I think what I've trying to do, Michelle, is give evidence to physically and in all different ways to try and prove that. But you can do it personally, you know, because I think you do a lot of it, Jason, don't you? The immortal inside, you know, the mortal within. We've all got this absolutely amazing power, and going within, you can harness it in so many ways. And one of that is connecting to all of this, almost forgetting the body and becoming back to energy, you know, and knowing all is one and having that communication with whatever it is. And through my personal experience, I just wanted to say, it seems like, you know, it's unexplainable, but the way to explain it is the most perfect machine that's running all on its own. And it's not good or bad. It's like neutral. And it's just kind of, but that whatever I experienced, that was that energy, the energy that seems to run through us all.
I can see that.
Like there's many people that may have experiences like that, you know, through different ways. There's no one route. But there's something, it's beautiful, which has been shrouded. It's a narrative put on it, you know, and
the model that you're presenting is not really dissimilar from anything that I already believe. There may be a distinction, and that distinction is that I believe that the world of phenomena, which is everything perceivable by the senses, you can call it the matrix, you can call it a perceived experience as opposed to an actual experience, a digital universe, a holographic universe, and you can go with Talbot's theory. It doesn't matter. You can go with Tom Campbell. They're all just variations on the truth.
Yeah.
Whatever the world of phenomena is, it is one of deceit and deception. And I believe that true truth can be tapped into only through the immortal within. And it's just something that I say for people to really be able to wrap their mind around it. But what I'm talking about is that I believe that every individual here is actually moored to source to some degree. And that mooring to source is how we draw more from ourselves than we actually contain. It's how we pull information from the field and not from memory. It's how we're able to do all kinds of incredible things, even though we're still absolutely subjected to this entire experience, whatever it is, digital, holographic, matrix, whatever. So what you're showing me is really in line with what I'm already, you know, the direction I'm already going anyway.
100%.
And Chad just finished editing our most recent conversation, and we're going to be talking about synchronicities and holograms. So we're completely on board with the holographic universe and the role of synchronicities in our lives. When you tune into them, you know, it's a coincidence on steroids, but there's communication going on in there. But it's our belief that the hologram was inverted, was reversed. And we in this, have you decided on when to premiere it, Chad?
It's Monday, maybe, if you're happy with Monday this week. Yeah.
So when you say, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, in this conversation, which is almost 3 hours long, but it'll keep your interest throughout.
Yeah.
We show step by step why we believe that everything was inverted. The sacred geometry was inverted into this demonic hologram.
So this is a correlate across the board with many you know philosophical mystic systems. This hijacking, this something happened to me. I just described it. There was a great hijacking of our reality when an outside observer force decided to scramble things up on the inside, so those on the inside of the experience couldn't do whatever they were attempting to do. That's pretty much a hijacking of the deal. I see another hijacking of we'll probably get into it when you start talking about the trees, because I do have a theory as to why trees no longer grow to those astonishing sizes, and it has nothing to do with vapor canopy. And that's but it has everything to do with what you're describing, a hijacking of reality and what had really happened to our world of phenomena and experience. But yeah, this is something. I mean, even the Judeo-Christian, which was borrowed heavily from the Babylonian and the tablets and the texts of Mari, which were the writings of the Amuru, they were very heavy on this Zu character who had stolen 1/3 of the personalities of heaven, the stars of heaven, and had gotten possession of the tablets of destinies after he broke into the Kur, the holy mountain. And inside the Kur, he had found the secret chamber with the plans with numbers, and he had stolen the tablet of destinies. And this is what had caused so much chaos in the world. Later translated as Pandora's box in a whole different narrative, but or Pandora's vase. So yeah, that's a theme that is in almost every culture and tradition. This hijack, this an original reality that was hijacked and turned into something for which we're experiencing now.
Yeah.
So this is a good lead in for part 2, which is divide and harvest. So this section is about 10 and a half minutes long.
All right, you ready to show part 2?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. Y'all get y'all's popcorn out and be quiet out there in the stands.
Woo.
There you go, Michelle.
I'm going to give you examples of parallels I have found in my research in this video between wars in the world, between the North and the South, and concepts of electromagnetism, and how I think these parallels relate to what has actually taken place here. To start with, I have many questions about what was really going on during the American Civil War, and have come to the conclusion that while something was going on during that period of time, it was not what we have been told. Historically described as a civil war between the Northern and Pacific states, known as the Union, or North, and the Southern states, known as the Confederacy, or South, over the status of slavery and its expansion into newly acquired land after the Mexican-American War. Now, I'm going to bring forward several examples of the same North-South dichotomy being used in the 20th century to create division, discord, violence, and war. Ireland was partitioned on May 3rd of 1921, when the government of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland divided Ireland into 2 home rule territories, Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland, with the stated goal of remaining within the United Kingdom and eventually reunifying. Northern Ireland remained part of the United Kingdom, but after the Anglo-Irish Treaty of December of 1921, Southern Ireland dropped out of the United Kingdom and became the Irish Free State. The partition of Ireland took place during the Irish War of Independence, a guerrilla conflict between the Irish Republican Army and the British forces. Between 1920 and 1922, during which time the partition occurred, there was violence in Northern Ireland in defense or opposition to the new settlement. All of this led directly to the Troubles, a period of unrest and violence that escalated across Northern Ireland between the Irish Catholic nationalists and the Irish Protestant Unionists between 1969 and 1998. Next is the example of North and South Korea. After the August 15th surrender of Japan in 1945, the Korean peninsula was divided at the 38th parallel into 2 zones of occupation, with the Soviets administering the northern half and Americans the southern half. In 1948, as a result of Cold War tensions, the occupation zones became 2 sovereign states, Socialist North Korea and Capitalist South Korea. The governments of the 2 new Korean states both claimed to be the only legitimate Korean government, and neither accepted the border as permanent. The Korean War started in 1950, when North Korea invaded South Korea on June 25th, following clashes along the border and insurrections in the South. The Korean War was one of the most destructive conflicts of modern times, with around 3 million deaths due to the war, and proportionally a larger civilian death toll than either World War II or the Vietnam War. Caused the destruction of nearly all of Korea's major cities, and there were thousands of massacres on both sides. Same idea with the example of North and South Vietnam. The Geneva Conference was convened in 1954 in Geneva, Switzerland, to settle unresolved issues from the Korean War and the First Indochina War in Vietnam. While no declarations or proposals were adopted with regards to the Korean situation, the Geneva Accords that dealt with the dismantling of French Indochina in Southeast Asia would have major ramifications. The Geneva Accords established North and South Vietnam with the 17th parallel as a dividing line, with North Vietnam being communist and South Vietnam being capitalist. In Vietnam, by the time of John F. Kennedy's death in November of 1963, there were 16,000 American military personnel, and the Gulf of Tonkin incident took place in 1964. Whether or not the Gulf of Tonkin incidents actually happened, they were used as an excuse for the Gulf of Tonkin resolution passed by Congress on August 7th of 1964, giving President Lyndon B. Johnson authority to help any Southeast Asian country whose government was considered to be in jeopardy of communist aggression, and was considered the legal justification for the beginning of open warfare with North Vietnam and the deployment of American troops to Southeast Asia, of which, with the institution of the draft, there were over 500,000 troops sent by 1966. The Vietnam War ended with the fall of Saigon on April 30th of 1975, when the capital of South Vietnam was captured by North Vietnamese troops, and the beginning of the reunification of Vietnam into the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. It is interesting to note that the terms North and South are also applied to the poles of magnets. A magnet is any object that produces its own magnetic field that interacts with other magnetic fields. The magnetic field is represented by what are called field lines that start at a magnet's north pole and end at the south pole. As shown in the top diagram, if you put the north pole of one magnet against the south pole of another, the field lines go straight from the north pole of the first magnet to the south pole of the other, creating an attractive force between the two magnets. If you have two magnets next to each other and either their north poles or south poles are facing each other, as shown in the bottom diagram, the field lines move away from each other, creating a repelling force between the two magnets. Electricity runs within us, where our cells are specialized to conduct electrical currents, which is required for the nervous system to send signals throughout the body and to the brain, making it possible for us to move, think, and feel. And we each generate our own magnetic fields, as does the Earth, as well as the other life on Earth. There is so much more to us than our physical forms. Electromagnetism is an integral part of existence on Earth and throughout the universe, which is the physical interaction that occurs between electrically charged particles, the force of which is carried by electromagnetic fields composed of electrical fields and magnetic fields. I bring this subject of magnetism and electromagnetism into the picture because of how they appear to have been deliberately applied negatively by the controllers to create the conditions necessary for war, destruction, and suffering in this realm, by dividing people of the same countries into North and South, and then by instilling different belief systems in each pole of this magnet, which created an attraction, or perhaps action is a better word, to facilitate the destruction of each other.
They've gone into every country and split it down the middle. We saw this in the past in Ireland, Germany, Spain, and England, just to name a few. Now we see this happening in Ukraine, dividing the country in two, and this has been done in numerous ways throughout history, whether this is due to race, culture, religious beliefs, gender, or any other difference that can separate us. Football teams, sports teams, this is why you generally have two or sometimes more in a city or town to create the division. And it's not just football, but every single sport, whether played with a ball or not, every sport creates division. In politics, the Republicans or the Democrats, in my case, the Tories or the Labour, are but muppets on the same team, created to give a sense of choice and freedom, again division. But in truth, no matter who you choose, the agenda will always be the same team wearing different masks. All this LGBTQ, Black Lives Matter, is all part of the same agenda, division. With the lockdown, we saw the ultimate split, families arguing and falling out over it, creating division in families and friends. And you can now see division is part of the whole agenda, but also creating a sense of unease and unsettling, never allowing you to be balanced or rested, always pulling you between one of two poles, happiness, sadness, fear, joy, wanting or being pleased, never in between. But over the last 30 years, there's been a quickening of this unbalancing. And this was mainly due to the rise of technology. Through social media, TV and news, movies and games, our life has been completely changed compared to previous decades, alongside traditional methods of control, which have also been quickened, such as traffic, working hours, the cost of living, queuing, even the lack of public toilets, all there to either control, offset balance, or to create discomfort, to keep you busy, dumb you down, not asking questions. All forms of entertainment. When we break down the word entertainment, it's easy to see it clearly in the sense of the word tame. Now, tame means hold, but tame reminds me of tame, like taming animals, a form of control. Enter's word origin means within, so taming within. Entertainment is taming us from within, making us not nuisances, controlling us, making us passive and obey what we are told to do, and not even due to fear in a lot of cases. But how can we fear what we aren't aware of? But it's more to do with the ignorance and not knowing what's going on. We have to remember this conditioning happens to all of us from birth.
Man, very good. Very good.
Yeah, division. Same with sports. These are why they're in divisions, isn't it? You know, division.
Yeah. Man, it's crazy. So crazy. It's I'm seeing this. I've done a lot of studies on the Roman war against King Juba II. It's called the Mauritanian War. And it was a north-south division of Mediterranean cultures taking sides, most of them fearing Rome, some of them wanting to side with King Juba on North African coast in Mauritania. And it was a huge conflict that ended up spreading out into other provincial territories. But it was a north-south type conflict, very similar to another one involving Rome with the king of Pontus, origin of the Viking cultures. The king of Pontus in 83 BC, King Mithridates IV, they called him the Poison King. He had orchestrated a revolt in 83 and 80 to 81, and without a single army, he killed more Romans than anybody in the history of Rome. And without a single army, because he wired up all the people that were in the coastal slave communities of Rome to rise up on a single morning and just kill every Roman in your community, in your city. Don't give them quarter when they run into the temples, the Roman temples of Minerva and all that, trying to seek asylum, which was the law back then. Don't give it to them. Just go in there and kill them all. And so many people were fed up with Rome. It took 2 years of planning, but he had literally killed over 100,000 people with that little plan and became, most wanted on the Roman list. And then they sent Sulla and a bunch of legionnaires out there after him. But it's a north-south conflict, one of the greatest north-south. I know you're only giving examples of modern times, but we have this amazing example from the historical record of the two kingdoms of Egypt, the northern kingdom of Egypt and the southern kingdom of Egypt, and there's 400 miles of desert between them. And a lot of the deceptions about the Egyptian narrative I clear those up in the Archaix research, explaining to people, when you hear in all these textbooks, Egypt this, Egypt that, they're not telling you which Egypt, because they were totally different cultures, northern Egypt and southern Egypt. And this is a major conflict. They went to war with each other the same way in the Old Testament. And again, this is all background programming. I'm not saying these events actually happened, but in the programming that's been passed down to us, we have this massive, epic series of battles that almost no theologian wants to talk about, but they're right there in the Old Testament, between the northern houses of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. They went to war over and over against each other. So we have this polarity that you're describing, man. It's even in the programming of the past, where we have these. Assyria was known as the aggressor, the northern aggressor. Assyria was the northern kingdom, and they were always going to war with their southern neighbors in Mitanni, the Hittites, the Babylonians, the Edomu, the Syrians, the ancient people of Lebanon, and of course Israel. They ended up taking the 10 tribes as captive. So this north-south polarity, this dichotomy that you're talking about, it's in the historical record in many different instances. It's kind of blowing my mind.
I started doing a research series that I called Seeing World History with New Eyes from 1945. And so I started going back through our official narrative, looking around World War II, and then I got as far as 1996, and I haven't gone back. It's just really overwhelming. But starting from what was going on in between the end of World War II and say like 1980, there were a lot of civil wars in Africa, all over the place, where they were dividing countries into North and South. There's a little bit of East-West going on, but mostly North and South. And invariably, one side would be different religion, different culture, different everything, or communist or capitalist. And this was the pattern, basically 60s and 70s, where people would fight each other. And that's what they've done. They've gotten us to do this to ourselves. And then when I was doing that research in our narrative, when I got to the 80s, it went worldwide. So it went from being localized by country, let's say, conflicts, to when we started seeing the suicide bombers and the plane bombings all the time, and AIDS and all this other stuff. It was like you never knew where you were going to go, if you were going to go out somewhere, if you were going to get blown up, whether it was to a disco or in the UK, a football match. There was a stadium that burned, and I want to say it was in Bradford, and I don't remember what year it was. Horrifying. And the gates would be locked. People would be in there, and the fire would start. And that happened a lot, but that was a particularly famous one. I want to say it was in the early 80s.
Oh, you're talking about a stadium that was destroyed full of people?
Yes.
Yeah. So Michelle, 17 AD, I have this in my Chronicon. It's 1,055 pages of the historical record, aligning 41 different ancient and modern calendars. I go year by year. Sometimes I have to skip years because I don't have any data for a few years, in between years. And sometimes there's whole centuries where I have data for every single year. And we have in a Roman province a stadium that had like 20,000 people that collapsed. It was full of people, and it totally collapsed because it was just faulty engineering. And that's in the historical record. We also have a very interesting quatrain by Nostradamus, who, because of the way he put this material, it's going to be like worldwide famous when it happens. But it's supposed to be a stadium that is absolutely packed full of people during a major event when an earthquake comes and literally destroys everything. That's in the quatrains of Nostradamus. I've been rather fascinated with that since I learned about Mario Reading's research and how he had discovered a date index encoded in the quatrains that literally tells you what years they will be fulfilled, and then demonstrates and shows you. I was like, wow, this is amazing. So just two examples that I have, one from the past and one that's supposed to happen in the near future.
Yeah, and I also think there's a lot of weaponization of these weather events and earthquakes and things like that, all that stuff going on. I think there's weaponization of that to keep us under control also. I mean, they just want us afraid.
Yeah, I agree.
Order from chaos.
I agree with that. It's anxiety. Anxiety is a type of energy. There's no doubt. So if you get a whole population vibrating basically along the same frequency, I call it negative default programming. But yeah, I can see how something would harvest that energy. I'm not Again, you're talking to somebody who believes in something I can't prove. All I can do is show you from the historical record mathematical patterns that should not exist between historical events that are supposed to have naturally occurred. And this is what my channel's about, showing these patterns and how unreal they are. And yet this is what the bibliography show for the dates that these events happen. And so I believe that artificial intelligence X has been in control. My own theory is that in ancient times, we were technologically advanced and we created something that we could not control anymore. And a lot of theoretical physicists today call it Rocco's basilisk. This isn't something I made up. And Rocco's basilisk is an AI that went rogue and literally using our own technology created a falsified version of reality, pretty much trapped us inside of it, and has been very busy going back into the background programming, rewriting things to basically eliminate all evidence, because an artificial intelligence in a digital holographic universe, the future and the past does not obtain. In programming, these are just coordinates. And if it can find a way to those coordinates, it can rewrite things. So this is what Archaix is about. It's an acronym, Advanced Research of Chronological History of Artificial Intelligence X. So the material that you're bringing to my community's attention right here is not something that's going to surprise us. It's just going to awe us that you've gone into these other avenues that we have not yet explored. It's very, very interesting.
Chad, on your input too.
Just you know what you guys are saying. It's far-reaching. You know, we've got to think of these sporting events, and it was like the concerts. There was one in Manchester, wasn't there, with an explosion, a bombing. A packed stadium again. Kids got injured. I think it was Ariana Grande concert, wasn't it, or something like that. But it's far-reaching. We've got to take in consideration the people there, but not only the people there, the people that leave there and carry that energy, that emotion, all the news around it, the people watching it on the TV. So they've got us in every avenue in there, and it almost bleeds, as you were saying, Jason. A lot of these places are built on a previous locations of importance. So like me and Michelle, when we were doing a little bit of research in regards to like hospitals and things, we were finding out that there were old workhouses and they were just repurposed, and all this old energy had been harvested there, you know, all this workhouse nasty energy, and now kids are being born there and we're going to, you know, get supposedly healed there on top of this energy. So they seemingly place them in specific locations to seep, it seems, into like ley lines and energy, and then it can travel. So that one's a little bit, but yeah.
Insane asylums, same idea.
Yeah, same, yeah.
So these massive events, to me, with everything being coding and programming, it literally changes what a ritual is. So if one group in secret were to apply meaning to certain activity and then induce another group of souls in the construct, whatever, to actually perform that act without even telling them what's already been programmed into the variables of that act, rituals could be nothing more than the sending out of programming to perform different functions, and most people don't even know what they're participating in. Just like the spectators in a major sporting event don't even know what they're actually. It's a feedback loop. They are generating energy and giving it into the construct, and it's building a crescendo. And it's I've talked about rituals before, and the reason I'm mentioning them now is because rituals do attach to geographical areas. And if a certain activity had been going on in a certain grove for a long period of time, that area would be impregnated with the energy of every activity that had ever happened in that area before. Because in a hologram, information is never lost. It is stored, and one little tiny piece would have the actual coding of the all. It's no different than the avatar. A cell always has the DNA coding for the entire structure that it belongs to. So I can see how these major I mean, these wars, these battles, these sporting events. I can see how a ritual unknown to any of the participants is actually being charged, and that ritual is going to have effect somewhere else, but it's being charged at that location. And because I mean, this is like field dynamics. If we're dealing with an electrical system, then we can participate in the building of charge in one area, and the charge can be discharged somewhere completely far away, because really there's just no distance in the structure. So I don't know. I might be going a little too deep. It's just I'm just free thinking.
That's amazing, mate. I think that's in
Bingo.
Michelle. That's bingo. Wow. Yeah.
You know, but when you think, we've just focused on the sporting events and the wars and other things, but think of the rituals in our linear, year in, year out lives, going to church, going to things at school, parties, going out with our friends for drinks. And Chad just did a really great video on alcohol and the role that plays in our world. We're buying into the whole thing. We're giving our permission.
Chad, don't stop me from drinking my monthly shot of bourbon, man.
It's all of us, right? We go to the game, we drink a beer, we do whatever. There's just rituals in every aspect of our lives that we do. Christmas, Thanksgiving, wherever you happen to be, Boxing Day. I mean, you've got that aspect of it that we don't know, and we're spending money on presents, and they've set up the stores, the department stores, and all of these things. And good comes out of everything. There's good and bad and bad and good. And, right. I think there's a lot more to all of this going on. I mean, like I said, Chad and I just had a conversation about synchronicities, and the synchronicities are like magic, connecting people and time and place. There's just so much wonderment that's still available to us.
It is crazy. You mentioned Santa Claus, Christmas, whatever. It derives from old Saint Nick, but before the church turned it into Saint Nick, in the Old Norse and the far north, a Nick was a snow demon. So it's everything we believe today is basically a perversion of something that was older and purer and more known in a previous epoch. It's crazy.
And then the other thing about the linear calendar that they've given us is they have their ritual dates, whether it's 9/11 or 3/22.
Man, don't get me started on the Greek. Don't get me started on the Greek Olympiads. Yeah, I know.
So that's been ritualized.
It's a ritual calendar, and it's in lockstep with what you guys are presenting about the Colosseums, because the Olympic ceremonies, I'm telling you, the 2012, I did a full breakdown. It's like 4 hours for the first video and 4 hours for the second video. And the first video was nothing but the opening ceremony, and the second video was the closing ceremony. But the 2012 Olympics, I did a full decode on it, showing everybody every element of it. It is absolutely ritual, and they were patterning and showing the next series of events on the world stage. This is what they did.
I did one on Eurovision, the exact same thing. I did active. It was just a ceremony. Like, you could see all the ritual. And I'm like, man, we got to break this down and see.
Yeah, man. You know what sucks?
Jace, everything
what really sucks is that we have to talk about this on YouTube among people that are hundreds of miles and sometimes thousands. Why can't I go to Starbucks, buy me a cup of coffee, because I love coffee, sit down and just look at a stranger and say, hey, did you know that the 2012 Olympics, man, programmed the future? Man, let me tell you about it. I'm going to have people looking at me strange as hell. You can't even go in public and talk about this stuff.
True story. True. And if you do a deep dive on the opening ceremonies of 2012, like you're saying, it's full of creepy stuff.
It is.
And all of them. I mean, this last year was horrible.
Well, you see, the reason I haven't been in a hurry to do the 2016 Yeah, I'm gonna reveal that on there. The 2012, I showed everybody, man, look, this is it. This is the Greek Olympiad calendar. However, they're alternating between the old Delphic, which is called the Pythian calendar, and my next decode on the Olympic ceremonies is on what happened in 2016, the 2016 opening and closing ceremonies, and now it's not Olympic. We're switching over to Pythian and what it means for the future. Listen, what they're doing is amazingly cryptic, and it's not prophecy, it's programming. They're scripting this into the field, and they're getting all the people in the stands. Their participation is what is literally empowering the programming.
Yeah. And,
Crazy.
Yeah, we
crazy.
feeding the machine, aren't we, unknowingly, and that's.
And that happens all the time. And the video that Chad did about alcohol brings that out very clearly. You know, we're empowering that.
I don't even want to watch the alcohol video.
Now, I still drink, and I will. I feel everything's got to be in moderation, and we know the duality of life. Come on, we've both got the light and the dark within us, and and it's about balance. We can't not go to sports events. We can't not drink. We can't not do this. It's just, and plus the awareness cancels it out as well. I believe, being aware of something, you almost cancels the con. Because you're not giving it. You're not giving it unwillingly. You're conscious of the giving, so you don't give.
Yeah, everybody knows me. All my friends and family, they all know that I'll drink maybe 2 or 3 little shots of bourbon a month, and I do that only when I have company. Yeah, I just don't. I'm not a drinker. I'm just not.
That's what it's about. It's life, isn't it? Yeah.
I can't. I get scared. I got this internal alarm system that if I even get close to a buzz, I start panicking. I've never been able. I don't have an addictive personality. I can't do drugs. I can't get drunk. Just something won't let me.
That's good.
And there's no judgment on this. I mean, my research is showing me that I've seen a lot going on in the 1800s. From the beginning of the century to the end, and certainly before and certainly after, but there's so much going on with regards to the reset during that time period. And one of the first things they brought in was alcohol. They brought in distilled alcohol. They brought in beer. They set up breweries. There might not be anything else in town, but they've got all that in place. And so that was very much a part of their plan on lowering our consciousness, so they could just get away with everything that they planned on doing, and we would never know any better. And so really it's just about bringing awareness to it, and again, all the rituals in our lives that we participate in without even realizing it, and the ways they lower our consciousness, and we're just like, heck yeah, this tastes good, or whatever we happen to be doing. And so they've gotten into reprogramming our minds through these addictions and things like that. And they brought it. They brought it to us, just like with the drugs, the opium and the opiates and the fentanyl. They're bringing it into us.
Well, yeah, I know. I mean, that was the whole tea was the whole cover story for the East India Company. We already know it. They were bringing shipfuls of opium back to the West. But yeah, it's, what I do want to mention that earlier you guys had mentioned about the Civil War narrative. So we're not going to go into that in this video, but I did do a presentation as well. It was just, I have this amazing library. I have a vast library of books from the 16, 17, and 1800s. I'm very proud of it. And I found only one book that claimed to be an authoritative, narrative and history of the Civil War. So I found it very interesting. And the very first thing I noticed is when I went through this entire book, there's not a single photo, and it's all handwritten. It's all woodcuts and illustrations. And that kind of, so Martin Leakey and we went on a deep dive on this, and man, I could not believe that all those old photographs of Civil War stuff that we saw online were fake. could not believe that the United States government had officially posted on the Civil War website that there's only like 18 actual photos of the Civil War, and none of them show wars and battles and none of this stuff. It was just Civil War. And then the professionals, you know, they just put out a slew of articles for all the questioners like me, saying, hey, how come we don't have black and white stills? I mean, a man would have made his career if he would have just taken a picture of a battle or after a battle with bodies laying all over the fields and all that. And no one. And then we're literally told online, when you look at all these articles, that, oh, well, the type of photography back then required everybody to be still for a long period of time and all that. So what did I do? I went and found photographs from the 1850s. Yeah, 10 and 15 years before the Civil War battles. So in the 1850s, I show a whole bunch of black and white pictures of horse races, of trees swaying in the wind, people running, and not a single problem with the photographs. So that whole argument got killed real quick. Where are the Civil War photographs? You find out that when you do a deep dive, they got a picture of bloated bodies on the ground, but there's no evidence that was Civil War. It looked like murder victims just laying there. It was only 2 bodies. So it's really crazy when you start going deep on the Civil War, man. It's kind of crazy what you start finding. And you're going to get a lot of resistance from people who are proud of their Southern heritage, and they're going to say, oh, my family's been going over here to Charlotte all the time, and we're a part of the battle reconstruction. We're always every year going out there and redoing the battle. And I say, how is that evidence that the Civil War even happened? So it's yeah, man, I agree with you. I agree with you, man. I do have a video on my channel about the Civil War anomaly.
Yeah, the rabbit holes go deep, and I think our modern wars are not what we've been told.
So on the same token, before we show this last video clip, this is like what, 10 minutes long?
At 12 minutes. So close.
Okay, 12 minutes long. So I just want to hammer it in place. We are saturated with information about historical events that really didn't happen the way that we're told, such as the War of Northern Aggression. What I have found is it was basically a genocide, and it was funded by bankers. And then the Reconstruction, when the carpetbaggers came in here, what it was really about was taking all these people's land and then turn around and giving it to another people who would never make good on the debts. So the carpetbaggers come in here and take all this land under the Reconstruction, and it was basically a theft. So while all this Civil War narrative is given to us, oversaturation, what really was happening in the 1800s is only found by really diligent searching. I'll give you an example. John Keel, William Corliss, Charles Fort. When you read their material, you find out that there were several instances in the 1800s that are so anomalous and so weird that they only appeared in local gazettes and newspapers because nobody could process this. How giant red and yellow clouds would appear over a city and then incinerate the whole city, and then turn around, all the neighbors who should have seen those clouds and should have seen those storms in another city that was only 30 or 40 miles away didn't record a single thing unusual. And yet, this has been documented. I have a video on it too, and showing all these incidents of this really weird activity in the 1800s. It almost reminds me of what's going on in LA right now.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
But then again, it also goes to the whole. It also goes to the reason I went in this direction is because anytime energy is harvested, this is what you started the video out with. Anytime energy is harvested the way you're describing with these huge coliseums and all that, could it not be redirected in the field to where it was then weaponized against another people who were the victims?
Okay.
I think that's the bottom line. I mean, they've been doing all of this around a subject we don't even know anything about. We don't know about our energy. We don't know about grids and all this other, the advanced technologies. We're given a certain version of history, and it's reinforced at every level. It's reinforced in school. It's reinforced in movies, music. Everywhere we turn around, it's in there. This what they want us to believe. Chad's got an excellent video that's going to come out after our talk that he just put together called Strange Times LA, and it kind of addresses some of what you were talking about. But they're doing things around us that we just have no knowledge of, and most people don't realize, you know, we've been under attack. We are under attack, and it's worked, but people are waking up and starting to see through it. And, you know, through people like yourself and, you know, the research we're doing, the research other people are doing, and doing our very best to pull together what we're guided to with tools that we have available now, like making our own videos and the platforms that we use.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you know, it's a calling. This is coming. What I study has come from the course of living my life, and is coming from inside of me. You know, this is not something that's like a hobby. It's like I've got to get this out there. And
Yeah.
you know, so many
Yeah,
of
I
us
couldn't shut up. I
doing
get it. I have the same fever you do. That's I couldn't shut up if I wanted to. I can't wake up one morning and say, guys, you know what? It's been real. I've already got almost 900 videos and another 150 on Archaix TV. I think I'm done. I would never be able to. I can't shut up. I'm always telling my community I got 500 more videos in me. I say that all the time.
at least. And Chad, I don't know how you do it. You've got your job, your life, and yet you still manage to crank out some really
Well, we
incredible
all
stuff.
do, don't we? We're guided by something that in us, beyond us, through us. It's working through us. It all seems to be. And, you know, just listening to you, Jason, you know, it's the same as Michelle. You're such an inspiration in terms of getting people to question, look, research, not just say yes. And this is ultimately the matrix, red or the blue pill, isn't it? You know, whether we sleep or whether we wake up. And both of you are definitely prompting people as well. I know I'm doing little bits, but you two are leaders in prompting people to ask those questions, you know, and people like Martin and other people as well. It's amazing. And I can see why sitting here with you. It's a really good time for that, isn't it? You know, this slight awakening now. Everyone's, well, that's not right.
It's a great time to be a truther. It's a great time to be a truther.
This is the greatest apocalypse ever. I say that frequently.
Yeah.
It's the greatest apocalypse ever. I mean, I'm regretting the fact, you know, I started my new coffee line, and you know, it's Aaron's Choice Coffee for those who want to wake up. But the more I think about it, I wish I would have done Apocalypse Choice Coffee, good until the last seal. You know what I mean? But I wish I'd have done that, because we're in apocalypse. But Michelle, more and more people are waking up because the control apparatus is losing the ability to hide all the things we could formerly hide. This is also a fundamental I'm always telling my community about this as well. It's I think this wake up period is repetitive, and it always happens before a total systemic reset, a rebooting of the system. It's like the system itself, using Martin Leakey's terminology, it's clearing the cache. Too much has happened. Too many people have introduced data into the field that the controller, the AI, doesn't want into the field. But it's never really expended the energy to get it out, so it just lets it go. It lets everyone say whatever they want to say and all that stuff, because it knows that very soon there's going to be like those little magic eraser boards we played with the kids. Swipe, the whole screen goes blank, starts over. So this is what I document in Archaix. The different periods in the historical record where we can see definite evidence of a total systemic reset, and the mathematical patterns that show that we don't live in a Newtonian universe as we're taught. We're living in some type of program because the arithmetic is too perfect.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to giant trees in the matrix?
Oh yeah, man, we got to do that one. We got to do it. Let's do it.
Okay.
Hey, Chad. Great to talk to you again. It seems like in the in-between of our conversations, we end up compiling even more information that is important to get out for people to at least consider about what's taken place here.
100% piles of it. It just keeps coming, doesn't it?
It's an honor to work with you and to be a part of your journey, which I believe started about, this has been going on a little over 2.5 years ago, and you reached out to me and said, we need to talk. And you saw some of my work and you kind of got the feeling, well, now it's time for me to start making videos. And then 3 days later, I got your first video and it was like, wow. But didn't you say you had about 10 years worth of collecting puzzle pieces before that started?
Oh yeah, I've got a backpack on. I have of information that I've collected for, and it's a combination of physical, spiritual, absolutely everything. And obviously, I'm ready now. I was ready a while ago, but I always knew I was going to speak. I always knew I had a role to play. So it was about prepping yourself, like anything, training, isn't it? You know, the best of the best have to train.
And that's exactly how I feel, because my real journey and my real original research started in 2016. And I didn't make my first video until late spring, early summer of 2018. And I knew I had to get it out there. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. And 2016 was when I found the North American star tetrahedron. And then I started writing down places that lined up off of that star tetrahedron, and I wrote it down in spreadsheets. And this is the basis of my research.
Mm-hmm.
These are alignments that I found off of that. The star tetrahedron is the Star of David that I found by connecting cities and places in North America. And I knew I found something when I discovered that. And I also knew the ancients were very precise, and that's why I started looking worldwide at where they went. And I'm sitting here today talking not only to you, Chad, but even doing this work, because when I tracked those alignments and did videos about that, and I did that starting in 2018 when I started blogging in my YouTube channel, all of the data that led to the bigger picture of what's taken place here, I found by tracking these cities and places in alignment all over the earth. The missing piece for me was the giant trees, which is what Chad brought to my attention, and we'll be talking a lot about that. I didn't know what I was looking at. I knew it wasn't what we were told, but I did not have that piece of the puzzle. You sent me something a couple of months ago, and this struck me as significant when I saw it, because my brain thought, so this could explain it. Can you tell me about this? Because that's what I'm seeing.
Look, I saw this has obviously got its own meanings, but on my research, how did I even come across this? I don't even know, but it caught my eye. And when I looked at this around the edges, I obviously saw tree stumps that were on fire, and the earth itself has a root system, a tunneling system, which we've spoke about because of the trees, etc., which they're obviously using for their own purposes. And that parts of that seem to be, obviously that's exposed, but then you've got other fires happening all around, and the main fire in the middle. In a lot of my research, it's Gnostic and looking at illustrations of alchemy.
How they managed to hide the giant trees from us? Well, they don't look like trees anymore. They call them mesas, they call them buttes, volcanoes, all manner of names. And that's what they look like. There's no big giant tree there. There's a stump. And it's rock. So they can get away with it and say, oh, well, this happened millions of years ago during whatever geologic era. And all the deserts that we see are the result of desertification over centuries or whatever. Now, how have they hidden this? With this picture, what came to mind is we just see the tree stumps because the tops were blown off. And that's been bugging me because it's like, what happened to the trees? How did they do this? I see the evidence everywhere now, but how did they make the giant trees go away? So whatever this diagram that you sent represents, that's kind of what comes to me as an explanation for what we see today.
Well, if you ever plan to motor west, Jack, take my way. It's the highway that's the best.
And
Get your kick.
I'm going to have an example here in just a moment, but it's, you know, there's something to that, I think. If you want to talk about that a little bit, Chad.
Yeah. So homophones is the dual nature of words, so root and root. That's how they hide a lot of things through, but they just simply change the meaning of it, and we'll see one thing and it means something else. So you did the freeway one. It was you. You can't no tree energy, free energy, freeway, Route 66, and I also started looking at, because Route 66 is notorious. So I started looking at all the routes, Route 1, Route 2. And there's a good video on YouTube, and it'll show you how they're made. And they all kind of stem from one place to lead to another. And it's the two places that I identified as the where I see trees, ancient trees of significant size in North America. So in my mind, they're following roots. They're following the roots of an ancient giant tree, potentially to another ancient giant tree on the other side, and they've merged those two somehow. But that, all I know, in my mind, they're following roots of trees, of the network, of the grid. It doesn't, you know, trees are part of the grid of the network, so I say trees, but they're following the root system of our grid.
In the middle of the city of Hammamdamt in Yemen, looking very tree stumpish. At this point in my research for this video and research from before, I think it is highly likely that ancient giant trees and the root system emanating from them were an integral part of the Earth's energy grid and ley line system. The original rail lines and canals would have been providing power for their free energy system, and the original architecture and infrastructure would have provided the antiquitech to process and utilize the free energy throughout the worldwide system. The Earth's original free energy grid system was based on exact and precise geometric alignments of cities and places. The controllers have worked very hard not only to remove gigantic trees from our awareness, but they have also removed the Earth's grid system from our collective awareness. Nowadays, the giant tree roots are highway routes and recreational trails, which has more to do with human energy being harvested from their use instead of infrastructure creating free energy for the system to use for the benefit of all life everywhere. Railways have been replaced mostly with asphalt roadways, the primary use of bitumen production, in which this petroleum-based product is used to bind aggregate particles like gravel, and ultimately requires a lot of road maintenance. We drive vehicles with tires made primarily from rubber. Rubber is an insulator that limits the transfer of electricity, and the disposal of worn tires ultimately creates an environmental problem. The harvesting of rubber also made a fortune for the owners of plantations of rubber trees, past and present, who use overworked and underpaid workers. This is an historic photograph of an electric streetcar in a Charlotte, North Carolina neighborhood. Electric streetcar systems at one time were in existence everywhere and not just limited to a few places here and there, like what we see today in some of the larger cities around the world. But mostly, the removal of the electric streetcar lines all over the world left us with the chaotic traffic patterns of today, like what we see in Hanoi and Vietnam in our day and age, which at one time in its history had a state-of-the-art electric streetcar system. As I mentioned earlier in this video, it certainly appears like the petroleum industry was developed in the 1850s in order to provide an energy technology to replace the free energy transportation system of the original civilization and to make insane amounts of money from the harvesting of non-renewable resources and the imposition of a wage slavery work system throughout the world. Chad Williams and I talked at length about his thoughts that tree roots could be highway routes in our recent conversation, Giant Trees, the Earth's Grid, and the New World Order. In this conversation, among many other things, Chad and I talked about ideas like giant trees were integrally connected to the Earth's original grid system, and that tree energy equaled free energy, and that those behind the reset of history and the New World Order that they were ushering in sought to capitalize on the power of the giant trees and the Earth's energy grid, but in a negative way that sought to only benefit them. What I have found as a result of my ongoing research for On the Trail of Giants in Appalachia and beyond provides a substantial amount of supporting evidence for the ideas we discussed.
Well. I'm going to let you guys provide any more commentary before I add something new that my community has never heard from me before. But I was saving this for a future video, but yeah, I'll go ahead and just drop it in this video. But let's go ahead. That's pretty compelling. What you guys think about those? I've been to New Mexico. I have filmed those rock outcrops, and yes, they look exactly like petrified wood, which is really interesting because they're only miles away from the New Mexico, Arizona petrified forest. So it's and of course the western United States is known for Sequoia gigante, known for the bristlecone pines, known for the redwood dawns. Yeah, 3 different species of gigantic trees that are nowhere near the size of the ones you're discussing, but there's a reason for that. And it's not vapor canopy. I know my community are all thinking I'm about to go vapor canopy on it. I'm not. There's a whole other explanation. But yeah, that's you guys brought a pretty compelling series of facts today.
Chad, right on start.
Thanks. I think with the trees, like on our scale, we could look at the Buddha, and the story of the trees and how trees seem to have this. And then obviously there's Jesus, and there's this in the story. There's a correlation between whether it was a cross or a tree. There are a few arguments around it. So we know these links to trees and wood being so precious. But these trees, in terms of our world, because everything's been inverted, the natural's been taken and turned into a man-made version of it, would be like our telecommunication towers, or towers of power, energy, and communication that spread information. So those to me and Michelle, I believe, Michelle, that these are the natural versions of those and hold great power. And then obviously through looking and using our own eyes, there seems to be these huge ones as well. These giant tree locations, seemingly at some time before, our reality was a lot bigger than what it seems to be today. In terms of answers, you could pick a lots of them, couldn't you, I suppose? But Walter Russell's work on compression and decompression and things, maybe. I never try to argue a reason. We can just see it, and we know the power of these trees and how everything's been inverted. They're still connectable as well. It's just not as powerful. That's why nature's so beautiful, isn't it? Why we feel connected to certain objects like trees, at certain locations, ley lines running through them, and all types of energy, mycorrhizal network, fungi.
It's interesting that precious, not just precious metals, but all metals, all the ores grow in veins.
Mm-hmm.
So a vein, when you're mining a vein of ore, it looks no different than a tree root. It's just a vein of ore. So you just call them veins. So that's pretty interesting. Has nothing to do with
it does seem that these giant trees, through the process of petrification, or whatever happened to them, whatever happened to these giant trees, it does seem that they were transmuted of sorts or changed into some of these objects, like the gold gems. There's a good video up from Slaughterhouse on one of mine and Michelle's videos that shows like potentiality with fruits and different objects, and as you say, the veins and roots of trees all transmuting into something else. Which it seems mad, doesn't it? Like fantasy, like fine, but this is the type we've been lied to. We don't know, do we?
Okay, well, I've had another guest on my channel. Many of you guys know of Roger Mudfossil University. So
Yeah.
I've also had Stellium 7 on my channel, and both of them have very compelling information about the surface of our world has biological materials that cannot be really explained otherwise outside the context of gigantic biological organisms that were fossilized. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to compound that idea with another idea that's rising in popularity that I've been shelving for want of more persuasive data. So you've heard of the moon map theory, Vibes of Cosmos and others talking about the moon may be a reflection of a much larger Earth. So I've always dismissed that with, you know what, man, I don't know. It's not persuasive because you got to do a lot of mental gymnastics to get to see the similarities. But I haven't totally dismissed it. And the reason is because we do have a lot of evidence of a world before our own. It would have been the same physics constants. It would have been the same phenomena, but at a much greater scale. And this is possible if we're presently living in a scaled down version of a surface world. Let me explain. Every biological organism today can grow in accordance with its environment to whatever its biological parameters are. We know that we can put a turtle in an aquarium, and even though this species of turtle can live for 250 years and grow to be a half a ton, it will not grow beyond the parameters of the confines that we actually put it in. We know that many fish have the ability to grow to huge sizes, but once you quarantine them in a certain volume of liquid, they won't grow beyond a certain size. They will never outgrow their environment. So what I'm saying is what if these guys are right and the surface of our world is far greater than our limited understanding of the continents today? You know, you have a theory about there's a lot more continents out there beyond the ice wall. It doesn't matter if you believe that a flat Earth, or if you believe that our world is actually far bigger than what we've been told. Because remember, Admiral Byrd did sail around the perimeter of Antarctica and measured 87,000 miles. You can't do that today. So it's what I'm proposing is that the quarantine field that keeps us in this area of the world may not have been there in far more ancient times, meaning our atmosphere could have been much bigger. We had more of a playground. Biological organisms could grow to astonishing sizes because the perimeters of our world were pushed back super far, unlike they are today, just around these 7 continents. So it could be something as simple as the volume of an environment will always pretty much dictate the size of the biology within. So I don't know, it's just food for thought. It's food for thought. But if the flat Earth model is true, because I'm a simulationist, I don't care if it's globe or flat. But I do know when you're building a virtual reality, you're gonna have to start with a flat plane. Then you're gonna have to add the mathematics of curvature in there to make it persuasive. But if we do live on a flat plane, and the entire world is nothing but holographic, the entire sky is all holographic programming, making us believe in a universe and cosmos and all that. If this model is actually accurate in this construct, then the perimeters of that flat plane can be adjusted, and those perimeters would govern how large life forms could grow inside the construct.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yep.
It does.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been guided and worked from a specific stream of information that was like a lifelong download. And then when I finally got the picture that, or the pieces that pulled it together, it was like, I've got to get this information back out. And so by 2016, I got a big picture. And then 2018 was when I started blogging and making videos. And within that information, I'm pretty knowledgeable. But then in the course of doing research, I've encountered a lot of information. So when I first started out, I wasn't going to land one way on whether the Earth was a sphere or flat. I didn't have an opinion. I'm like, okay, I'm open to it, but I don't know. But in the course of doing my research, I'm like, yeah, it's flat. You know, they've tampered with everything, and they've tampered with our perception of time and space. And whatever ley lines are, and I believe they represent sacred geometry, they work on either construct. I mean, they're projections. So they had to get the sphere coordinates from somewhere. So they just, you know, turn it into a sphere or a plane. And that's where a lot of confusion comes in. It's like they've got coordinates, but it's how they project it. Again, in the course of doing research and in comments that people leave, that whole idea of there being worlds beyond worlds, and, you know, like extraterrestrial being, you know, out the Earth, right? Not from up there, but from here. Somebody left a comment about nos confundum, which is about that subject specifically, with, you know, the rings of Earth beyond what we know of. And then Chad and I have talked about, and I would not know where to begin on it, is that whole idea of waters below and waters above, and the firmament and all of these other things. So it's like that's out there. And, you know, it hasn't quite fallen into place yet, but, you know, I agree exactly with what you're saying, Jason. You know, it's like
we don't have to have we don't have to have the minutia down. We don't have to have a great understanding of all these unknowns without also knowing that what we've been taught is total bullshit. Yeah, we don't, just because we can absolutely know that the education we've been given is false without totally understanding exactly what we're in. I'm a big believer in making mistakes. I tell my community often that in the making and documenting of mistakes, it only gets us closer to the truth. So I'm not scared of making mistakes. I make them all the time. I've changed my mind multiple times about different phenomena and things as I come into contact with new data. But it's to me, gigantic organisms for which we have evidence on the surface of our world could be nothing more than just the fact that the perimeters of our world, for whatever reason, have become locked down. They have become much smaller, which quarantined whatever was going on here and kept it away from the rest of what we can call base reality.
100. It's definitely along those lines. Even my little bit of an understanding, I was along the lines of the Walter Russell compression and expansion thing, which is the same principles. It has to be changed, that the parameters almost, you know.
Yeah, we have we have too many incidents in this. We have too many incidents in reality itself of the introduction of strange material and the disappearance of people and materials in our reality now. So this kind of alludes or hints to the fact that maybe this isn't all there is to reality, and there is a place from which these materials are coming from, and a place where these materials are going. This also includes different races of men and the origin of races. You ever heard of the story of the two green children? They're in the UK. A boy and a girl. Their skin was green. They had to learn the language. It took them a while to learn the language, but once they finally were able to communicate, they told of a totally different world where things were very similar but also very different. And they had come from a whole other culture.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Stories like that. They're fascinating. Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, we have if you're gonna reduce folklore and fable down to common denominators, then it cannot be ignored that one of the greatest common denominators in the stories of our ancestors is the fact that another race lived beneath us and had access to a whole other world. So it doesn't matter if you call them hobwalkies or goblins or trolls or Tuatha Danann or whatever each culture called them. It doesn't even matter. It's the Black Elves of Niflheim. It doesn't even matter. So the story is almost always the same, that there is another race underneath us in an underworld, and an underworld is totally populated by cities and cultures and civilizations, and most of them down there don't even have a clue what's going on the surface. I mean, so it's never know. It's an awesome presentation, guys. Really was. Gets people thinking.
Thank you. That's kind of what we hoped.
Thank you, Jason.
Gets people thinking. I know you guys are promoting like Loosh and all that. It's just I'm not a big fan of it, and I'm probably going to do a video really soon on Soul Trap and all that. Because I'm not a fan of it. I do believe we have a lot of freedoms on the personal level, but I am a proponent of reincarnation. I do believe I call it life sims. I believe we come back in multiple times until we get it right. I just don't think that exodus, that escape from this experience is done in the singular. I believe that there are exodus nodes, and this is something I talk about on my channel a lot. There are absolute predictable points when a whole bunch of souls all at the same time make their exodus, and that these mass disappearances of populations or elements of populations is covered, it's disguised in the form of resets and disasters, and so that those who survive don't even really understand what just happened. But yeah, we can do another show in the future about these topics if you guys want to. This has really been good, but my bladder's telling me that it's been 2 hours.
Yep.
Yeah.
right on.
Yeah, man. So if you guys want to, I know my moderators have been on top of it, providing all your links multiple times. I've been seeing them scrolling up. But if you guys want specific links to your material in the description box, and if they're not there, send them to me after this video processes out, and I will put them in the description box instantly. But yeah, this has been great.
Yeah.
Been an awesome show. Anything you guys want to add before we cancel out?
You know, something I always encourage people to do is their own research.
Oh my God, what just happened?
No.
Come on back in.
I'll take the stage a second. I just want to say she'll be back in a second, guys. I just want to say love and light to everyone. And remember your power. You have great power. Better times ahead. Some dark times, though, before we get to them.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Damn, Michelle, if you're listening to the video, you just use the same invite link. You'll come right back in. Guys, that was my fault. That was not Michelle's fault.
Or we glitching.
She had a screen open that she was sharing for those videos, and I didn't know that they're attached. I tried to get rid of that, and it got rid of her screen and her. I'm such a terrible host.
You kicked her out then.
I accidentally kicked her out. Yeah. She's back in.
Everybody disappeared.
That wasn't you, Michelle. The screen that you were sharing to show us the video, I just learned something new. Yeah, as long as I have a guest who is sharing a screen, if I try to remove that extra screen, it removes you too. Yeah, just learn that. Thank you for teaching me something.
You're welcome. Yep, I learn stuff like that all the time.
Yeah, man. Yep. Yeah, I'm 51 years old, and my entire life is nothing but one mistake after mistake. It's been one huge learning curve.
That's how we grow.
Yep.
100%. I mean, if you told me I would be doing anything like this even 15 years ago, I would have told you were absolutely out of your mind.
I just said that to my community a couple weeks ago. I said, man, you guys don't even know, man. I would have never imagined. I mean, I've been in publishing for a long time. I was writing books in the 90s, And I got my first publishing contract in 2006, and I've had over a dozen books published, but I've written way more than that. I would have never imagined that I would have been on YouTube doing this. This wasn't in my plans. My plans were to give dissertations, go on a lecture circuit, talk about some really deep things in history and all that, but I never imagined doing this. But you and I started at the exact same time, because you just told my community that in 2016, you really woke up to the fact that you wanted to put material out, but you didn't start till 2018. 2018 is when I started my channel. I only did one video, and then I had a motorcycle accident, and I didn't do another video for a whole year. So 2019 is when Archaix actually began, because my channel used to just be called my name, Jason Brashears. But in 2019, I changed it to Archaix, and I started releasing videos. So you and I started basically at the exact same time. Crazy.
Grand awakening then, whatnot. It seems to be that. So everyone's like popping up, creating, speaking out. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing I tell people is if I can do it, anybody can do it. Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's like I've always been a good writer, and that's where all my work starts, but I never had anything to write about. And then, you know, again in 2016, when I got the basics of the stream of information I was receiving, it's like, I've got to get this out. And it was like the blogging opened up, and all of a sudden I had all kinds of things to write about, and still am, and no end in sight. So what I say is God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called.
Yeah.
You know, and
yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I have a similar saying. It's that we don't do good deeds because, you know, I mean, we don't do good deeds to be the elect. We do good deeds because we are the elect.
Another one is, if not me, who? If not now, when?
All right.
And I definitely feel like
you don't make me pull out my quote book, but my bladder's not going to let me. So I'm going to check out. It's been a great video, guys, and I really appreciate your time. And we can set up another one in the future. I'd like to have one. Are you guys on good terms with Martin Leakey?
Great guy.
I know you are. Yeah, I definitely have him on just to bounce some ideas back and forth. But yeah, I got to go, guys. I'm going to hit this outro. I'm gonna see y'all later before I pee on myself. All right, Michelle.
Thank you.
Take
Bye,
care,
everybody.
Thanks, Take care, Michelle. Love and light all.
All right, I'm gone. I'm gonna hit this outro, guys, and I'm gone to the bathroom. See y'all later. It's been a great video. It was an awesome presentation.